When you turn on your Insta360 Go Ultra for the very first time, the first thing that I would recommend doing is swiping down from the top, going into the menu, and then scrolling down here until you get to video bitrate, and set that to high. I think the bitrate on cameras is a really underrated and often overlooked feature. I actually think bitrate is just as important, if not more important, than resolution. I know everybody wants to shoot in 4K or whatever, but if you have a low bitrate, 4K is still going to look bad, especially when you upload it to social media. So I would actually prefer shooting at 1080p with a high bitrate than shooting at 4K with a low bitrate. But of course, shooting in 4K is going to be better if you can also shoot at a high bitrate in 4K, which is what we're doing here on the Go Ultra. Now swipe up from the bottom of the screen, you'll see your resolutions here. It's probably set to 4K out of the box, but just make sure. And then I prefer to shoot at 30 frames per second. This camera can go all the way up to 60, but when you go to 60 frames per second, you lose the capability to shoot in HDR, or high dynamic range, which is why I always set this to 30 frames per second. Now, HDR is one of the features that I kind of turn on and off depending on the scenario. If I'm outside in bright daylight and there's a lot of contrast, so let's say there's dark shadows and bright skies, that's a great time to turn on HDR. It'll give you more dynamic range and you'll see more details in the shadows and more details in the highlights at the same time. But if the scene that you're filming is a bit more evenly lit, then the HDR can actually make that already evenly lit scene look even more flat. So that's when I like to turn off HDR. So here's a scene with HDR on, and here's with it off. And I actually like it turned off in this scenario, but turned on in this scenario. Now moving on to stabilization, I would recommend leaving this either at standard or high most of the time. Now swipe down from the top again to go back to the main screen, and then down here in the bottom right hand corner there's the option to choose from a bunch of different field of view settings, and I like to set this to linear because it completely gets rid of any fisheye effect. It makes it look more like a standard camera than an action camera. Then swipe over from the right to bring up this menu, go to metering settings and switch it from face to matrix. When you have it set to face, it will always prioritize having your face properly exposed, but what that ends up doing is constantly blowing out the background or making it way too dark in the background, and I would rather have the whole scene look nice than only your face being properly lit. But that's just my opinion. Another setting in this menu is the video sharpness, and for most scenes I leave this on medium, but if I'm vlogging and filming myself, I like to bump it up to high. The reason I do this is because action cameras don't have any autofocus. So technically when you're filming yourself at like this distance, you're not perfectly in focus, but you can kind of cheat a little bit by turning up the sharpness to make it look like you're a bit more in focus when filming yourself. These are just a few tips to get better shots with the Insta360 Go Ultra. If you have this camera or you're interested in getting it, then definitely check out my other Go Ultra videos right here, and I'll see you in the next one.